No matter what you say on the internet, there's someone who's going to tell you you're wrong. And there's just no arguing with that. Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the KnifeCenter, and welcome to KniFAQ episode 245 of the series where I answer all your questions, sharp or dull. And those questions come from the comments section. So drop your questions down below. Say hi to Thomas behind the camera, everybody.
This is the second time I've said chorizo dip.
And the first question we're addressing today is proof that if you say anything on the internet, someone will argue, even if it's like unassailably good information or true. Odd Savage asks us this. Opposed to your sage advice, let's say I habitually be an idiot with the knife. Because I always say, don't be an idiot with a knife. Be safe, All right, Odd Savage, what do you got? What would be the best steel for that scenario? Is there a knife made specifically for idiots? We could go some dark places right there, actually. But this is a family show. We won't.
They make rubber training knives.
Yeah, that's not going to cut really well if you expect it to. That would be a knife. Anyway, I know there are left-handed knives out there, so are there any knives that fit perfectly into my demographic of complete and constant idiot? All right, I got some for you. Steel is one half of the equation, and this is true no matter what you want your knife to do. Steels certainly have, I can't believe I'm taking this question seriously. Steels have their attributes, toughness, corrosion resistance, and edge retention. Those are the things we typically focus on when we're talking about knives. However, there is the saying that geometry cuts, meaning even if the steel, you could have a super steel with a very obtuse geometry compared to a pedestrian steel with a very scalpel-like geometry. Guess what? The pedestrian steel is probably going to cut better for you most of the time, at least until you need to sharpen it, For this idiot, we're going to go
Your words, dude.
the opposite direction. Yeah, Nigel, I'm not, geometry cuts, and like the thinner the geometry, the more fragile it is. So you want geometry that doesn't cut great. Because, at the end of the day, you want something that's going to be tougher at the expense of other, priorities. Because if you're going to be an idiot, you don't want your knife to break. So you want tough enough steel, but more importantly, tougher geometry. And if it's a folder, a tough lock.
I'll go in there and also say good retention on the sheath.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that, Thomas. Yeah. You want a sheath, if it's a fixed blade, that holds, that holds the knife really well. If you're being an idiot, you don't want it falling out. Or a good pocket clip for that matter, too, if you're talking, a non-fixed blade. Let me introduce you, we'll start with fixed blades and we'll get to folders, to the Becker BK2. US made 1095 Crovan steel, which is tough enough, certainly. And it is nearly a 1/4 inch thick, or it is a 1/4 inch thick. With a not particularly high flat grind in relation to the blade shape. And with apologies to my friend Ethan Becker, the BK2 is the knife you reach for when a knife is not necessarily the thing you need. Yes, it will cut, but it is also something that is going to stand in for all these other things that might be a better tool, but you're not going to actually have all those better tools on you all the time, especially in like an outdoor like survival, hardcore use scenario. The SE5 would be another good example. Tops makes several 1/4 inch thick carbon steel fixed blades. Take your pick, quite honestly. But the BK2 is a classic and comfy in the hand, so we took this. And the sheath is over there, and this one clicks in. And it has, I think it has the an extra retention strap in addition. It has a strap that runs around here. There's also a nylon sheath. That also has a strap here but doesn't click in, so take your pick. Basically, good luck, irreparably damaging this blade. It can be done.
And we want to hear about it.
Yeah, what I'll paraphrase or alter the idiom a little bit. If you make a better mousetrap, nature builds a better mouse. If you make an idiot-proof knife, the internet will make a bigger idiot. Thank you, Odd Savage, for the question. Oh, we got to talk about folders still. Sorry. This is cracking me up. It's appropriate that we talked about the Cold Steel Recon 1 earlier this week. We're going to bring that back and Cold Steel back into this. It's kind of like a big Cold Steel Love Fest week, we'll say. I don't think there was any new Cold Steel in the new knives video, though, early from a couple days ago. Doesn't matter. Check this out. The SR1 in light or non-light form. Triad locks, so you've got, that robust locking mechanism. Thick blades on both of these, plus they're tantos as well with very robust tips. Again, you can break anything, but good luck, with something like this. Both of these actually are pretty heavily textured. You can kind of hear it going. That combined with the wide and stout pocket clips here is going to give you plenty of retention to keep it from falling out. The SR1 Lite's about $63. It went up in price recently, but it's still a pretty good bargain for what it is. It is 8CR steel, but it is a lot of it. You've got the triad lock, and it is a big knife, 4-inch blade in this case. Or you can go for about $155. You can get the S35 VN version. Both of them will be, adequately tough enough steels. They're not like super tough, alloys if you're getting into like you want a steel with more toughness, but the geometry is going to go a long way to making up for that in either of these cases. Buy one of these, go forth, and be an idiot.
Or don't.
Or don't. All right. Next question is from Happy KT. It's more of a comment that she left actually, and it's sort of thought-provoking to me, so I wanted to use it here. And this is perhaps embedded in her comment is perhaps part of the reason why people will always tell you you're wrong on the internet, because the internet is full of not necessarily good information sometimes, even when it's supposed to be an authoritative source. But anyway, Happy KT. David, I own both a Recon 1 in the Tanto and Spear Point versions. Here's that one. I looked up, and this was in response to the Recon 1 video we did earlier this week. I looked up whether the term drop point, which is what you kept referring to this version of the Recon 1 as, was the same as a spear point, and got this from Google. Is a spear point and drop point blade the same thing? No, a spear point is not the same as a drop point, although they share a similar, versatile, and in some cases, overlapping design. The primary difference is that a spear point is symmetrical, with the tip aligned at the center axis of the blade, while a drop point features a spine that slopes down toward a lower, stronger tip, allowing for more belly. The Recon 1 Cold Steel still identifies their Recon 1 with a clip point tanto and spear point, not a drop point blades. So thank you again, KT, for this comment. I left a response in the comments section to this. And first, let's get to like the Google answer there, which sounds like it was an AI generated response, which that shows up at the top of most Google search results these days.
It was the AI that told us to eat rocks, right?
And put glue on pizza. Yeah. I get so frustrated, not with you, KT, but with like those AI summaries, because one, they can be wrong, and I don't know how often they are, but it can be wrong. I don't know how often they're right either. And the answer can change from search to search, even if you do it from the same machine in the same location on the same day. For instance, I plugged the question you posed in there, and it gave me a slightly different answer, like substantively different answer than what it gave to you. But the spear point aspect, having a center line, or being more or less a drop point, but with a center line, true. Also, it's saying it's symmetrical by nature is also mostly correct, but like we tend to give a little bit of leeway if it's not like exactly perfect. If it's a center line drop point and it is more or less kind of symmetrical, yeah, we can still kind of consider it a spear point. But again, that's sort of a subjective thing there too. So right or wrong, and people get opinions and they say one's right or wrong, even if it's a subjective thing. Anyway,
all reverse tantos.
We could, but we're not going to. If it's dagger shaped and you flip it upside down, is then it a reverse spear point?
Sure.
It's symmetrical. So it was mostly correct, I would say, in its definition of spear point. But the result it gave you in this case about the drop point is just wrong, saying that the tip should be lower than a spear point. At least that's the way it looks like what it's saying to me. The tip on a drop point can be lower or higher than the center line. That is not required. Saying a spear point and drop point are not the same is both correct and incorrect. Because a spear point, I've always at least understood it to be a subset of drop points. All spear points are drop points, but not all drop points are spear points, that sort of thing. What else? What was I going to say? If we're talking, I didn't grab like a specifically like dagger shaped profile because that can technically be described as a spear point, but we refer to that more often as like a dagger profile, even if it's single edged. Are the weeds up yet? I'm going to slash the weeds down. So, rant over on Google AI summaries that are not as reliable as they should be, are rightish and wrongish at the same time oftentimes. Now, the other side of this is, with Cold Steel referring to this as a spear point, is marketing. I would say Cold Steel is guilty of this sometimes, but they are certainly not unique in this industry where a term is used for better marketability, even if it's not like factually correct. And let me say, first off, I don't take umbrage at Cold Steel calling this a spear point. I think that's fine. I'm not going to get like upset about that or take them to task. However, if we're like boiling it down to it, this definitionally isn't a spear point because, first and foremost, the tip is above the centerline axis of the blade. Slightly, about 1/8 of an inch, in fact. So it's, by definition, can't be a spear point in that case. It's also a little less symmetrical, but if this tip were a centerline and the spine arced down a little bit, I'd probably have no problem calling it a spear point in this case. But no matter how you slice it, if you're doing the measurements on the Recon 1 spear point, it's just a drop point. There's nothing wrong with that. Genuinely, I really enjoy this particular blade shape on the Recon 1 right here. Spear point or drop point, no matter what you want to call it. Anyway, thank you again for the question. As I said, I wasn't trying to pick a fight with Happy KT, and I made that clear in the comments, but it just gave me an opportunity to rant against, search engine junk, search engine slop, and marketing inaccuracies.
Not that you needed much excuse to do it.
I can throw another bomb. It's not a blood groove, even if K-Bar in official marketing terms calls it a blood groove. Blood groove doesn't do what it says it does. It's a fuller. But that's marketing, confusing facts again.
Comment below.
This is, I like the folks at K-Bar. I'm working with the folks with K-Bar on some projects and with Ethan Becker. So so I'm not trying to pick a fight with you guys either. But anyway, now we're going to come to our measured once, cut twice segment, which is going to coincide with our lightning round. Because when we did that Recon 1 episode earlier this week, we had a lot of knives on the table or on the cabinet back here behind me because it's really hard to pin down like what could really take the fight to the Recon 1. And there were some things even on the table back here that, we could have left in the video, but we kind of had to edit down for time and to make a kind of more coherent narrative. So there's some of those. Well, basically, I asked you guys in the comments to give your suggestions for Recon 1 competitors, and you obliged. Some of which were things we had back here on the table, some of which are not. So I want to go through a few of them here, just because I think it's fun. K-Ref Sens says Cold Steel Swift M3 Atlas Lock. More of a competitor than the Voyager, which I should have. Okay. Definitely like size and shape, especially comparing to the drop point spear point, is pretty dang similar. Its overall length is virtually the same. It's just tiny, tiny edge on the Recon 1, but you got a little bit more edge on the Recon 1. M4 steel on the Swift, so a steel with more toughness for sure. And yeah, I'd put it in a similar realm in the cross-section of robust geometry without sacrificing slicing capability. You've got the Atlas lock, as mentioned. You've also got an assisted opening mechanism. And Cold Steel claims the Atlas lock is even stronger than the Triad lock. The assisted opener, yeah, that could technically be one more thing to go wrong. So, you know, that long-term may affect reliability over the Recon 1, which is known for its reliability. But if the assist on this does happen to break, I think it's going to operate just like a regular manual Atlas lock folder at that point. So it might be superfluous. That could be a good option. Price is certainly not comparable. Oh, I take that back. It's not as bad as I thought. The cheapest Recon 1, which is the some of the Tontos on the site right now, are like $130. The Swift 3 is about $200. So it's a pretty big jump, but it's not as big as I thought it was, actually. Next up, Gozd 9119 says, just don't compare it to the maker of the Recon 1, the Demco 2.0 MG Whale Shark, my other fave folders. Interesting one. This one wasn't on our list that we had pulled. The Swift was actually, but it just didn't make the cut in the video. This is kind of an interesting one. You've got the Shark lock, certainly very strong and durable. You've got the Andrew Demco connection, of course, because he did design the Shark lock as you intimated, or Triad lock and the Shark lock. Yeah, compared to the Recon 1, it's definitely a little bit smaller. Standard grip area, about the same. Yeah, not too much different there. Less choke up spot on the AD20 and less blade overall. This is our KnifeCenter exclusive Whale Shark blade version, which you mentioned. We don't have any in stock at the moment, but I know more are in the works, and the XL version with our Whale Shark blade is also in the works. Not having one in front of me right now, that I could say that might be a closer competitor to the Recon 1, but that might leapfrog it a little bit and go bigger. So maybe this one would be a more appropriate thing. But, as such, yeah, I mean, you're giving up how much edge there? About ½ an inch of edge overall. So, what's it worth to you in that case? Also, it is considerably more expensive, but interesting one. Not one not one that I would have put on the table, even if we were considering it, but interesting to consider nonetheless. Nonetheless? Sure. Lyndon Marquis says, wait, nope, I skipped one. Sorry about that. Owen Johnson says, where's the S35 VN Rat 1? This is also one that was not on the table. Here it is. About $97 for this version right now. And material-wise, we are similar. We've got, G10 in this case, as opposed to the injection molded of the cheaper versions, and S35 VN. Spiritually, however, I think they're two different beasts. You've got significantly less sharpened edge, as you can see. Handle-wise, maybe a little closer. You've got this long grip section, and you've got a significant area of flat space to choke up between the two. So I do like that comparison there. And although the Rat 1 has been shown to be a very durable knife over time, this is a thinner, slicier, shorter blade overall, and doesn't feel like it quite tackles the same tactical side of the equation that the Recon 1 does. Wouldn't be a bad option, but I don't know, this one doesn't quite do it for me in the direct heads-up comparison, but an interesting one, which is why we're talking about it now. Next up, Lyndon Marquis. Is the Extrema Ratio Rayo a competitor? On price alone, it's out. Yeah, we're talking about, $380 for that. And it's too thick to be slicey. Yes. Although the geometry is not terrible on this. It could certainly be worse. But there's nothing more tactical, has multiple blade shapes, and the lock would withstand atmospheric re-entry. Some hyperbole may be involved. Yeah. The Rayo is cool. You got the locking mechanism here and the secondary pin, which will go in there and provide even more. But yeah, this is I don't think there's any comparison right here. This is an entirely different beast. This is like pure like combat folder. You know, it lacks the ergonomic comfort that the Recon One has to me. It lacks the everyday slicing capability. It is, you know, finickier to use the lock. I take that back. It's not finickier to use the standard lock, but you know, the secondary piece, how often are you going to want to use that? It also lacks the convenience of being able to carry it in your pocket, because there's no pocket clip and it comes with a sheath like this, which is designed to work with the knife closed in the standard pouch or open in the pouch at the back. So it's basically two sheaths welded together, stitched together, hence very bulky. Kinda. Especially you go with the drop point version of that. Ooh, do they call it a spear point or not? I'm curious now. They call it or we call it a drop point anyway. That tip looks almost centerline though on the pictures. Maybe it's a spear point, I don't know. The Rayo C is a little more interesting as a comparison. This takes the kind of DNA of the Rayo and scales it down a little bit. It's still a big knife, you know, just under 4-inch blade. Still expensive. It's Italian made. We've got N690 steel. The price is $335. It's definitely bulkier feeling than the Recon One. Edge a little bit less. And this one definitely as well doesn't have the same type of handle comfort that the Recon One gives me. And this lock is definitely finickier to use. It's a crossbar technically, but it's not here. It's up here. This is a secondary lock actually. So that does kind of, you know, bring it back up to being a more, you know, convincing competitor to the Triad lock. Having that extra, you know, secondary lock on there helps for sure. But having to go all the way up, I basically have to choke all the way up to here in order to get the right leverage of the angle to use that crossbar lock. Which if I'm using a crossbar lock, I like to do it in a finger safe manner, and I can't do that. Yeah, I can't really do that I can't get it back far enough. So it's kind of similar to a lockback in that regard in the way you have to close it two-handed. It's also not as easy to open one-handed with heavier gloves on. You can do it, but there are no thumb studs. Kind of an interesting combo though, or yeah, comparison, I mean. But it still kind of reinforces my belief that like there's nothing quite like the Recon One because of what it does and where it's priced. Anyway, shall we move on? Where we go? G-Bogan, or Gebogan. How about the Spyderco Police 4? I actually had the stainless steel Police, not Police 4, on the table back here because there's definitely an overlap in demographic, especially in marketing demographic with the Police and the Recon One. But in the end, it just felt, you know, a little less close to the Recon One. We had the resilience due to the materials matching up well, and we had the Manix 2XL because like this felt like the best Spyderco option to compare it to. We had like a handful of Spydercos out here actually. So it was kind of edited down for time, but talking about it here, it's more slender feeling. Weight actually might be slightly heavier due to the stainless steel construction in this case. The tip is more acute on this, but the geometry overall is fairly robust due to the saber grind right here. VG10, you know, decently tough, but you know, it's okay toughness. It's not really a tough steel like the S35 VN. My gut is telling me that should be tougher in general. But you have a lock back. We've got the Triad lock on the Recon One. So this is an okay comparison, I would say, actually, but it feels a little bit different. The Police 4, you know, comparing it to the Recon One, the standard Police, I think is definitely better because the Recon Police 4 with its full flat grind and slenderer blade profile, this is more like slicer than, you know, aggressive tactical style knife, even if it's like larger than the standard Police. Corey Smith, the Endura 4 Saber Grind is a hefty blade, folds into a nice slim package, great ergos, cheaper but adequate steel. We actually had the waved version on the table here behind me. Because yeah, the saber ground version of these knives is fairly durable. Unlike the police, you don't have the swedge at the tip, so the tip is going to be more durable. $120 for this waved version, which leaned into the tactical aspect a little more that the Recon one does, but again, just felt a little bit smaller and not as good as a comparison as the Manix 2XL. So that's why that didn't make it to the table, but a cool one. So like you guys are thinking along a lot of the same lines I was. It's cool to see that. David 7802707 says, DCA, I would also consider the SOCOM Elite a good competitor despite the significantly higher price point. Had this one on the table behind me too. Yeah, I kind of think it does. It got left out in the end because of price point in this case. But yeah, there's a bit of the same vibes going on, same mission. Like the SOCOM Elite is quite tactical, yet it is everyday practical as well. Substantively, like we've got a liner lock here as opposed to the triad lock. We talked about how those are not often seen in the same league of strength and longevity as the triad lock, but it's certainly a quite stable thing, and this is certainly a very proven tactical knife as well. Blade steel is also thicker on these, and the geometry is not as slicey, so every day that aspect's going to suffer a little bit in comparison, but I think it's a fun comparison nonetheless. All right, one more, that's it. Michael Santoro says, I'm surprised the SOG Seal XR didn't make it into the list in the SOG segment. Is that due to price? No, we actually had this on the table too initially, but the reason it didn't make it is the Trident we did have on the table felt like a closer matchup when we had them both in hand next to the Recon 1. So let's compare the Seal XR here right now. There's S35 VN and MagnaCut versions of this knife, just like the Recon 1, but they are both more expensive. Even the S35 VN version is $100 more than the Recon 1 right here. Blade is a little bit shorter. Handle is, you don't get the secondary choke up spot because you've got this big flipper tab in the way. And with the jimping all around, you've got more traction on this handle as well. Not just the jimping, but also the texture on the handle itself. So it loses out a little bit in handle comfort overall. And this is an interesting thing where blade length specs don't always tell the whole story. This is a 3.9-inch blade length. So if you compare tip to leading edge of the handle, they are very close. The Trident has a shorter blade, but actually has more sharpened edge than the Seal XR. Like it has almost the same amount of sharpened edge as the Recon 1. It's slightly more efficiently designed, I guess. Anyway, that was some of the other cool stuff, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into kind of the thought process that we go through. Like Seth was in here helping me out as we were trying to make heads or tails of all this stuff that didn't quite feel like a Recon 1. How do we talk about all of it? Yeah, it's part of the process of pulling together items for these videos. And I hope it was at least, I hope it was entertaining, but at least informative. There we go. Now we come to our most final question of the day, which is, of course, our most seriousest question of the day, which comes from Defotion1. Question: Valentine's Day is rapidly approaching. That's not a question. Here in 2026, what knife says I love you better than all the rest, especially for a woman who isn't into knives at all and still opens Amazon boxes with a 59-cent plastic utility knife? I had a good think about this. Valentine's Day is about giving, right? Expressing your love and your gratitude. I guess Christmas is more about giving, but
it's about buying chocolate.
Yeah, but we're gonna say giving because that helps my joke here. So rather than giving your crush, your heart, maybe do something nice by giving her the heart of her enemies. That would be appreciated, right? So to do that, you're going to need some sort of butchering, knife. It's the point where you have to put a caveat up there saying this is a joke. Don't do this. Because internet, whatever, they're going to think I'm serious, even though it's
full of people.
Jokey. So you need some sort of butchery or butchering adjacent thing. So I thought, yeah, you could go with a butcher knife. That's too pedestrian, though. And if she's not into knives at all, you might as well give her something that's really shocking, you know? The ADV Butcher series. This is the mini Butcher right here. Perfect for delivering the hearts of your squeeze's enemies on a plate to make them feel better about, I don't know, something. Valentine's Day knife, the ADV Butcher, said no one ever before this, I'm sure. Until someone on the internet tells me I'm wrong and they did it first. That's all we got time for today, folks. Thanks for sticking around. Keep your questions coming down below in the comment section, and it'll have a chance to get picked up in a future episode. Let me know what you thought of the suggestions here. How would you idiot-proof a knife is perhaps a good question to pose to the internet. Keeping in mind, of course, that the internet will build a bigger idiot. So, we don't want to better mousetrap ourselves into oblivion by creating so big of an idiot that they can't be contained. So use the comment section responsibly. And to get your hands on any of these knives, check out the links in the description. It'll take you to KnifeCenter.com. Don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program, Apple Pay, or Sezzle at checkout so you can split up your payments. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera. We're signing off. See you next time.